Yeah, in terms of just giving everybody sort of a taster of what Serie A has been this season, we're going to sort of break it down just for a little introduction here into winners, losers, surprises, and disappointments. Steve, who would your big winners and losers be from this year's campaign?
Yes, so obviously Inter is the big winner. They're going to win the title after, I think, now 11 or 12 years without it. I think the Antonio Conte project has clearly been a success. He's put a team together that just works. They've been quite lucky that they've had quite a lot of continuity in their squad as well. Not too many injuries, not too much coronavirus, which has affected quite a lot of teams in Serie A. And then other winners, I would say, obviously Atalanta, you got to throw in there because they're looking likely to qualify for the Champions League once again. Although it's hard to say now whether we just expect them to be there these days or whether this is an outstanding season. But we'll chuck them in there, and then especially when you consider some of the turmoil with the Papu
Oh,
Gomez
Papu
situation.
Gomez.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
to overcome that and still do well in the Champions League as well, we forget. And then the other team I'd probably go is after a lot of false starts in their renewal. AC Milan this season have put together, I think, a bit of a. I think they're faltering a little bit now with a very young squad, but I think they've finally put the pieces together on building a new cycle with some quite exciting players that I think will continue to get better into the coming seasons as they add a couple more little pieces to the squad. So yeah, they're probably the top three. But then obviously you got Hellas Verones, Sassuolo, some of the mid-table teams that have also done quite well. And yeah,
Well, yes, I mean, in this episode, we're going to discuss the standout stats in Serie A this season, and you mentioning Sassuolo there, Steve. There's one player in particular from Sassuolo who we are going to discuss. But in terms of surprises and disappointments, from purely an optics perspective, but not from a statistical perspective, I look at Torino this season. 17th in the table, 24 points. Very much on the brink of sort of the relegation zone. Would you say that this team, who were sort of perpetually around the 7th to 10th mark for quite a few years, what's happened there? Because you've still got Andrea Bellotti, who, let's not forget, is a very, very adept striker. What's happened there on the other side of Turin?
well, yeah, there's two teams really that have, I think, completely underperformed this year, and that's Fiorentina and Torino. Torino's one's a bit harder to explain because it hasn't been the complete overhauls that we've kind of seen at Fiorentina, who have gone into the season with Iachini, who's a pretty average manager, then went to Prandelli, who had problems with his mental health during the season, and now they're back with Iachini. But Fiorentina have got a much better squad than 14th. And Torino the same. It's quite hard to kind of pin it down. They've still got Bellotti, guys like Rincon, Mandragora on loan from Juventus. Yeah, it's really, really difficult to say.
So, in terms of losers, I touched on Juve in the in the introduction there under Andrea Pirlo, but I mean, at the moment, at the time of recording, Juve have conceded the fewest goals in Serie A, so you can't really say that it's been an absolute shambles of a season, a horrible title defense, just because the Scudetto's not going to be coming back to the Juventus Stadium. But would you say, based on the past decade, that there's perhaps for the first time in a while you're putting Juve in the losers column?
Yeah, well, I think when you don't win the title, the 10 in a row, it's a big disappointment, and you probably do have to go straight in the loser pile. But I think, yeah, it's been a strange season. I was actually looking at the expected goal difference for Juventus's last season with Allegri, the season with Sarri, and now with Pirlo. And in Allegri's last season, Juventus were actually, I think, fifth in expected goal difference per 90 at 0.58. They were third highest in Sarri's season with 0.71. And they actually have the best expected goal difference in Serie A this season at 1.05. So I was very surprised by that. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of peel or doomers. I think he will remain as long as the team makes the Champions League. But yeah, it's hard to launch a big defense of him. I think he has made some errors this season. He's been quite tactically inflexible. There's only been a couple of players that he's really managed to get the best out of. I think probably McKennie, maybe Morata and Chiesa, probably the three that have performed best under him, and Quadrado. But he kind of struggled with others. Kulusevski's the last few months have just been terrible, constantly being played out of position, either as like a out and out kind of striker or more of a number 8 kind of player when he really needs to be. I think right wing is the position that you're going to get the best out of him. Yeah, and then you've just got kind of a just dysfunctional team going forward, and you've got this reliance on the energy and hustle of Chiesa. Quadrado's been sending in some magnificent crosses and getting a few assists. Ronaldo having to finish everything that he can, and kind of Morata stretching defenses with his running and getting a bag of assists as well. But you can't just rely on a few players' individual attributes to win you a bunch of games. You need a kind of cohesive system. But then also on the other hand, Pirlo's kind of been dealt a difficult hand. I think Juve have now had 9 players that have got COVID this season, which I don't know any other league that's even had 9 COVID cases amongst their playing group. But Serie A seems to be uniquely incompetent in terms of dealing with COVID. And then he's also had quite a lot of injuries. We've seen Dybala miss pretty much all of 2021 so far. Alexandro missed a chunk of the start of the season. Demiral, Delict, Quadrado, Artur, Morata, I think even Aaron Ramsey have missed, some pretty big chunks of the season with injury. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I think if you go to a manager in their first year and they don't quite, hit the ground running and win the league, it's hard to blame them. You maybe need to be a bit more introspective and think, well, did we hire him for one season and then get ready to sack him straight away, or was the whole point of hiring that we needed to give him a bit of time to get things right? So I think a lot of questions being asked now with whether Allegri might come back and all that, but I think the cycle in and of itself is just about ready to come to a close.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Allegri did come back, that would put an end to the managerial merry-go-round rumour trail that you see in English football whenever there becomes a vacancy in England. The rumours that apparently Allegri's learning English, there'll be no more, which I'll be glad to see the back of, to say the least. But yeah, that's it's a quite an astute summary, really, of a season which has been in turmoil for obvious reasons, but for Juve, that it's not been a shocking title defense, but just one that has been beset by issues that could befall any club. I mean, we've seen that across Europe this season, with Paris Saint-Germain struggling and Liverpool's title defense being not exactly the strongest in recent years. So yeah, it's been in terms of this season, safeguarding against coronavirus, perhaps not the best, but in the entertainment stakes, a lot better.
And you're not losing to a scrub team. You're losing to Inter Milan with one of the best coaches and a fantastic squad, a fantastic starting 11. Yeah.
Hey, whatever helps you sleep at night, yeah.
Exactly. I'm just I'm coming out with all the excuses now.
Absolutely. But in terms of surprises, we glossed over that a little bit. Has there been anybody, because there was Hellas Verona last season who I think caught everybody by surprise under Ivan Juric. Has there been anybody this season that you've been equally impressed by?
Well, I was going to say, as I said with Atalanta, it's hard to be surprised by Sassuolo and Hellas Verona doing well. We've kind of come to expect that Verona just continue to be that kind of defensive juggernaut. Maybe Benevento would probably be, if I had to pick any team under Pippo Inzaghi. An interesting system. They kind of press quite high and had a 2-2 draw against Juve the other day where they were quite good. In terms of players, I would say I picked out a couple.
They've just signed Adolfo Gaich.
Have they?
Yeah, from CSK, from CSKA Moscow.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He's got 2 goals in 6 games, so I mean, good stuff. Can you tell who's reading off flash scores as we record?
And then in terms of players, I had I think McKennie I had down because when he arrived from Schalke, I was a little bit confused as to why, but Pirlo has managed to get quite a lot out of him as an attacking player, which is probably the most surprising thing for me. And And then I had Christian Romero at Atalanta, who's had a fantastic season, and he's just proving himself as one of the best kind of, physical dual one-on-one winning everything kind of center backs there is out there. Bastoni at Inter has become one of Conte's most trusted central defenders, which is not an easy thing to do, to become a trusted Conte player. But once he trusts you, then he will fight to the death to keep you in the team and play you as many minutes as he can. And then probably the biggest surprise is Gonzalo Villar at Roma, who they picked up out of the second division in Spain, I think in January 2020. He didn't play much last season, but he's come into the team and played quite a lot of minutes this year, and it just looks really composed and and he looked at right at home in the under-21 Spanish team, conducting things from midfield. So he's in that vein in terms of Spanish midfielders that can run a game and do some lovely aggressive passes and interesting things from the base midfield.